Welcome. The Tuesday, April 5th committee meeting of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee of the Metropolitan Council is now beginning. If we can find our seats and get going, we have a couple of things on the agenda and then a presentation from NDOT. Right now, I see that Young, Allen, Bradford, Evans, Gamble, Henderson, Hurt, Nash, and O'Connell are present. That is indeed a quorum. First of all, if we look at resolutions, we have three, and I'm going to recommend all three of them on consent. That's RS 2022-1453, 1459, and 1465. Is there any objection to any of those being on consent? Speak now, forever hold your peace. In that case, I will read the captions and then entertain a motion to approve. RS 2022-1453, Allen, Young, and Stiles, a resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement for refuge truck rentals and related products and services and related products for the Department of Water Services. RS 2022-1459, O'Connell, Withers, and Young, a resolution authorizing Rutledge Flats, LLC to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 622 3rd Avenue South. And RS 2022-1465, Johnston, Allen, Withers, and Young authorizes the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through Metro Water Services, to enter into a facility encroachment agreement with CSX Transportation Incorporated to construct, use, and maintain culverts in the railroad right-of-way at Hogan Road and Regent Drive in Davidson County. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda? Thank you. All of those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? I believe we're at 9. Okay. So the consent agenda is recommended, 9 in favor, 0 against. That now brings us to bills on second reading, and the first one is BL 2022-1114, Mendez, Evans, Rosenberg, and others. Amend section 13.08.080 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws pertaining to the use of license plate scanner technology to add a definition of personally identifiable information. Councilman Mendez, you are recognized, and I believe you have a substitute.
I do. I would ask that somebody on the committee move the substitute, and then I'm happy to offer an explanation.
Councilmember Allen has moved the substitute. And seconded. Go for it.
All right, thanks. So I want to appreciate, just to fast forward on the next one, 1115, I'm going to ask for it to be deferred. This one, 1114, I'm going to ask for the committee to recommend approval. I want to thank the committee and Mr. Jameson and the administration for helping to get a better response on this. I heard Councilman Nash at the last meeting loud and clear when he was saying that the only information that should be needed is the license plate, date, and time and location. In conversations with the administration afterwards, vendors suggested that make, model, and color also be added. And so the way this is set up is it has a broad definition of personally identifiable information that basically covers hopefully everything that anybody could consider PII, and then carves out the plate, time, location, make, model, and color as quote-unquote allowed PII, and then it amends what we passed a month or so ago to make it so Metro will not keep any personally identifiable information except for the quote allowed PII, again, make, model, color, license plate, location, place. And I think with that, we should have something that provides a definition, is workable with vendors, is consistent with what Councilmember Nash was talking about last time we met. And for those reasons, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would ask that the committee recommend approval.
Any discussion? Councilmember Nash, you're recognized.
I think I appreciate the amendment being brought by Councilmember Mendez. I want to make sure that that won't preclude the system from checking with NCIC, because we're not storing that information. That's information that's stored elsewhere, but that's what makes the system valuable, that being able to talk to each other. Are we there?
I think Mr. Jameson will tell you that he checked with the police department on this.
That is correct. I believe Commander Gilder may be here to verify this, but confirmed with the police department. Also reached out to 3 vendors or manufacturers of LPRs just to make sure from an operational perspective this was workable, and all 3 verified that it is.
Good to go. Thank you so much.
Commander Gilder, did you have anything to? Perfect. Any further questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, this is on the substitute. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? I think we're still at 9. All right. And now on the bill as substituted. Anything else? Whoops. All right. Is there a motion or? All right, and a second on the bill as substituted. Thank you. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, that is 9 in favor once again for recommendation. Councilman Mendez, we are now at BL 2022-1115, Mendez, Rosenberg, Allen, and others, amend Section 13.08.080 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws pertaining to the use of license plate scanner technology to exclude assisting with immigration enforcement as an allowed use of LPRs. Councilmember Mendez.
On this one, I'm going to ask the committee to defer to the second meeting in July, and I would like to offer a brief explanation about why I picked then.
All right. Is there a motion to defer to July 19th? And all right, Councilmember Mendez, go for it.
Thanks. So this is the one about sharing information about immigration enforcement, and this again is the thing that there was what I sensed widespread agreement in the council that we would prefer for license plate reader data to not be used for civil immigration enforcement. The police chief sent us a letter promising that that would be the case. And because there was consensus on that, I would still like to try to brainstorm more about whether there's a way to accomplish something. But we're about to be in budget season. When we get out of budget season, the first meeting in July is always slammed with 2 months worth of public hearings. And so that's why I picked the second meeting in July to give some time for reflection on this to see whether there's a way forward, but get past the budget, get past the big public hearing in July.
All right. Any discussion on the motion to defer to July the 19th? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? And any abstentions? Once again, that is 9 in favor and 0 against. That concludes our legislation on the agenda today. And now we are excited to have a presentation from NDOT from Ms. Anna Dearman, who's the walking and biking manager, to kind of give us an update on what's going on with the Vision Zero Action Plan. And Ms. Dearman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember Young, and thank you all for having me. My name is Anna Dearman. I'm the Walking and Biking Manager at NDOT. I wanted to provide a brief update on our Vision Zero action planning effort, as well as an update on our walk and bike effort. So I know you all have heard about Vision Zero more recently. This is just a quick update. As you know, we kicked off this effort last year in 2021. We finalized our Vision Zero action plan in February of this year, and we are currently working on our implementation plan. So this is essentially how we're going to spend the budget, exactly what projects we're going to do over the next 5 years. As recently as today, we were workshopping this implementation plan with our consultants. The action planning process was a robust engagement effort. And we really took a systemic approach to trying to understand traffic crash patterns to enable us to address those systematically. We developed a lot of values around how we see the system, how we believe it should work in terms of safety for all users and prioritizing people over vehicle movement. And we realized that Nashville has disproportionately high high safety incidents compared to our peer cities. So we have data around the fact that we have a significant problem here in Nashville. We know that our most vulnerable road users, people walking and biking, see more serious outcomes in these crashes. We also recognize that speed is a risk factor for all users. The streets that have the most lanes, the higher speed limits, near busier commercial areas, we tend to see more crashes on those areas. And again, we see that outcomes for people walking are worse than for those using other modes. And so 1 in 4 crashes involving a person walking results in a death or a serious injury. 25%, 1/4. We also found that only 6% of the streets in our countywide network account for 60% of traffic deaths and serious injuries. These 6% of streets will be the focus of our implementation plan efforts. So our action plan delivered some strategies with timeframes, specific kind of actions that we're going to implement over the next 5 years. Who's involved? What kind of budget impact is this? And then our implementation plan will really drill down into, like I said, exactly what programs are we going to build and deliver? What projects are we going to construct citywide? You can see the data that we collected and analyzed for this effort online, visionzero.nashville.gov. There's an interactive dashboard. You can see our pedestrian high injury network. You can see where crashes involving are associated with high frequency transit are located, that kind of thing. And as I said, our implementation plan will deliver specifics like we're going to look at this corridor and we're going to address pedestrian incidents at these locations. These are the tools in our toolbox that we can apply. We're going to develop programs where we can systematically apply certain tools, deploy them across the city. We anticipate this implementation plan by the end of the month. We are already working towards implementing our Vision Zero action plan. As you'll see, it informs the way that we approached our walk and bike plan and the projects that we've prioritized in that plan. And we are already embedding this safety orientation to the work that we do across all functions of NDOT. So now I'll spend a little more time on the walk and bike update. I don't know that you've heard as much about this effort. So the walk and bike plan is our strategic plan for sidewalks and bikeways. It's an element of our comprehensive plan. It was created it was last updated in 2017, and it needed an update. The charge from Mayor Cooper was to deliver projects faster and at lower cost. And so we essentially reprioritized our project list in order to meet those goals. Our vision remains the same. And just so you all know, within the new structure at NDOT, our Assistant Chief Engineer, Brad Freeze, is over certain elements of our business planning, engineering, transportation planning, that kind of thing. And then Philip Jones is over things like operations and maintenance, so if you need contacts for those functions. Again, a robust stakeholder involvement process. We engage with many organizations and individuals across the region. What we heard very clearly regarding both sidewalks and bikeways was that there are not enough of them, and streets don't feel safe to use the facilities that do exist. So we developed a prioritization criteria, and I'll just speak briefly to it. Based on feedback, based on our safety analysis, which was aligned with the Vision Zero safety analysis, we really prioritized safety, so crash incidents, connectivity, so we actually prioritized sidewalks where there was some existing infrastructure where we might be able to close a gap. We prioritize connections between bikeways and greenways. We prioritize access to transit, so locations within a 1/4 mile of frequent transit. and health and equity. So we used the Greater Nashville Regional Council's Degrees of Vulnerability Index to really identify where we could prioritize projects for vulnerable populations. And this looks at various demographics, race, income, gender, access to cars, renter versus owner status, that kind of thing. So we scored the entire Davidson County network, and the maps on the screen show hot spots for where we received the highest score. So for sidewalks, that was really 2nd and 4th Avenues, kind of south of downtown, Gallatin Pike, north of the Briley Parkway in the Madison area, West Nashville or the Nations area, South Nashville, the interchange between Interstates 24, 40, 440, kind of the Woodbine area, between Goodlettsville and Hendersonville. For bikeways, we really saw hot spots in downtown on the east and south sides of downtown. In North Nashville, around our medical centers such as Centennial, St. Thomas, Ascension, Vanderbilt, and Gallatin Pike again in Madison, and the Nolensville Pike Harding Place interchange, among others that you can see on these maps. So the outcome of the walk and bike planning effort were 3-year work plans. So we have already begun implementing these work plans. We have already delivered projects since this plan was released earlier this year. These are the projects that we are committed to delivering over the next 3 years. And I just want to point out that we will partner with other programs in delivering these projects. So some of them will be delivered through our involvement in development review, through private development. Through our paving program, we are partnering to implement bikeways. Through our, capital improvements project, our capital program, and we will still seek opportunities to implement other segments in the priority bikeway network and the priority sidewalk network that was identified in 2017. So as far as next steps, again, as an element of the comprehensive plan, we're exploring opportunities to discuss this effort with Planning Commission. As I said, we are already implementing projects. We continue to maintain our network as a critical component of functionality. We are developing tools, so data-driven tools to help visualize and prioritize projects and plan proactively for projects in coordination with, for example, an upcoming water line project. We are also beginning discussions at NDOT around comprehensive transportation planning efforts. So we don't really have a comprehensive transportation plan for the county. We have our major and collector street plan, but we do not have more of a comprehensive plan for every element of the street network, programs, assets, and a vision for that over the next several decades. I just want to respect your time. I know that was pretty quick. Are there any questions?
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Dearman. So I was on the task force, and I guess I just want to make sure I understand. Are we considering the plan without the implementation plan complete at this point, or is it draft until that implementation plan is also a part of it?
Thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. So the Vision Zero Action Plan is final, is completed.
Okay. I will just say I think it's tough for me to evaluate how successful it is as a plan without the implementation plan because it seemed pretty light on policy. So I guess I'll hold further comments until we see the implementation plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I will say our implementation plan will outline specific policies that we'll deliver. I think in the last update we provided, we called out specifically a pedestrian crossing policy, our quick build policy, and so there will be a policy component of the implementation plan.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you. Is there a way, and I just may not know this, of how to know if one of the faster sidewalk build projects is slated to come your way? Like there's one that's under construction in my area, and it just magically started, and I didn't really know where I was looking, and I know that process has changed, so can you speak to that?
Abracadabra. Magically started.
That's a great question. Thank you, Councilmember. So our sidewalk projects viewer is updated pretty regularly. Some projects are deployed in response to crash incidents, and so I think there probably is a lag time between sort of commencement of construction and when those projects appear on the sidewalk viewer. But if you have any specific questions, then I'd be happy to answer those with our program management team.
Yeah, I think and I may not be really phrasing it well, and I can certainly follow up with you independently. I'm thinking about maybe ones that could fit into the new process and not ones that are prioritized as part of the original sidewalk plan. So like there was one in Councilman Syracuse's district and one in mine. And so I look at my district and go, I don't really know what other areas could qualify for something like that, but I don't know if it's something that would be identified yet in that way. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. And so I don't know that the viewer would include a way to identify potential rapid build projects. Essentially, the way that you can see it for yourself is if there is a curb and gutter and right-of-way available. Those are the criteria. And so, but where they fall in sort of the prioritization, we do have an internal dashboard that we use to kind of help plan that process. And we are looking to make that publicly accessible, but I'm not exactly sure of the status of that.
Council Member Henderson, who suggested that we have this presentation, and thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair Young, for having Ms. Dearman. She did a great job at the BPAC, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advocacy Committee of the MPO, or the GNRC, I guess we call it now. So thank you for being here for the committee and Chair for inviting her. Ms. Dearman, you've done a great job of trying to explain all the different pieces of the puzzle. As this committee has discussed with the previous directors and leadership, it's been a little bit difficult through all the kind of volatility to kind of find the through line, right? And so, I concur with Councilman O'Connell. I also am a member of the Vision Zero Task Force, and I don't recall any communication saying that the action plan was complete and the extent to which kind of the implementation plan works with that. So we may just need a little kind of additional clarity on that. I appreciate understanding how Vision Zero informs the new prioritization process. I think one question I do have is kind of in the engineering standards space. So I'm just going to mention a project in my district where we're doing a bridge improvement from a safety standpoint, improving the related sidewalks that are adjacent. But, when I look at the adjacent street, this is in a Tier 5 walkable commercial center of Green Hills, right? We've prioritized walkability there. What I see still in the design is a level of service car priority rolling corner, right? So when I first saw the drawings and I said to staff, hey, I'm still sensing that there's kind of a disconnect in our engineering standards based sometimes on location. I might understand that out on a big pike near a truck, something another, like you've got to have that radius, right? But this is in a walkable center with kind of office uses, a lot of people walking to, the mall or ice cream or the bookstore. And so I just look at that and see, like, why didn't we catch that and square off those corners? Because that's sort of best practice from a walkability standpoint. So, not necessarily at this time, but I unless you have a quick answer, but I would like to understand how this kind of coordination, right? So if we're paving, then we're doing bikeways, or we're doing the bridge improvement, so we're updating the sidewalks. But I still feel like we're missing some things, and that seems to be it. Kind of like, are we trying to move cars faster, or are we trying to help people cross the street safely? So that's one. And then secondarily, you said at the top of your presentation, 6% of streets or 60% of the crashes. What percent of that 6% are state routes, please?
So I'm not sure of the exact percentage of 6%, but the majority of them are state routes. The majority of them are our pikes.
Okay, and so I think I would like to hear some more about just from a analysis standpoint and a prioritization relative to our capital budget versus, the state's budget, and the kind of just programmatically and from a grant standpoint. I know that there is certain buckets of funding, and I appreciate that everybody is working together, whether through MTA, the state, locally. We're doing good things. But as I look at it just from a cost standpoint and a safety standpoint, when the majority of that 6% is on state routes, what that funding split looks like, and are we engaging to the degree needed at the state budget level to make sure there's an appropriate bucket of funding. And what I would say to colleagues is that's not just a Nashville issue. It's not just a Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga issue. It's a Cookeville issue and a Jackson issue and a Gallatin issue. I mean, that's true of our state routes everywhere. So I would hope kind of at the state level, I'd be interested to know what we're hearing and seeing there. Mm-hmm. And, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
That's my two things to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. So just to address your questions really quickly, we heard clearly through delivering the action plan for Vision Zero that it was not detailed enough. And so that's when we actually determined to develop an implementation plan. And so we've closed out the planning effort, we've created the vision, and now we're going to show you exactly what we're going to do, and it's going to be very detailed. And so that's kind of how the action plan leads into the implementation plan. These are the projects, the programs that we are going to build and deliver. We are working on updating our design standards, so that's an element of Vision Zero implementation that's already underway. So we will be able to provide things like a standard detail for a narrower curb ramp or curb radius, as well as other elements of our active transportation network that we don't have design, standard designs for. And so we're definitely approaching that from the Vision Zero perspective, as well as our traffic impact analysis guidelines. So we're embedding Vision Zero into every function of NDOT, including when we're reviewing developments, we're not looking at pedestrian level of service right now. We're not counting pedestrians, and so we've already begun revising how we approach sub-area traffic impact analyses, but even for site-specific analyses, we will start looking at things like, not only how do they need to design their improvements to better facilitate travel by vulnerable road users, but also how can they contribute to safety improvements, both at and beyond their site. So both through our design standards update and the multimodal traffic impact analysis update, we're trying to address those concerns that you mentioned about Green Hills.
All right, we will go to Councilmember Nash, and then we probably need to wrap it up. So I think there's other committee meetings that some need to get to. Because you smiled, I will go to you, Councilmember Gamble.
It's her committee next.
Councilmember Nash.
Last night, 9 o'clock at night, Knowles Road near Harding Place, you got the big Walmart, 2 people, dark clothes, crossed into the middle of the block. And we spent a lot of money with a very sophisticated crosswalk at Welchwood, and there's crosswalks at Harding Place. All that to say, I hope in this plan we've got some way to try and educate, whether it be signage or what. We've got many, and that's an area where we've had a great deal of pedestrian injuries and deaths. To educate, drivers aren't always at fault, and at dark clothes, crossing in the middle, just daring to get hit, educate some of our pedestrians and see if we can't control some of that behavior.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Nash. We will have educational campaigns targeting all users as part of Vision Zero implementation, and that's in addition to infrastructure strategies that make the safe choice the most convenient choice. So education and engagement strategies to really gather that local knowledge around how they want to use the system and to make sure that those crossings, for example, are located in the right place. These are all elements we're considering right now.
And Councilmember Nash, I hope that you're wearing some bright clothing or driving a bright car so that if I'm crossing the street, I see you coming and know to duck out of the way. All right, Councilmember Gamble, and then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Chair. Really quickly, does this plan, this prioritization plan, connect at all with the Dickerson Road corridor plan that also is a part of the Walk Bike Nashville plan? I didn't see it as a part of this prioritization plan. How does that connect in any way?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Gamble. So we did look at other existing planning studies. It factored into our prioritization, and we to be clear, our 3-year project list doesn't preclude us from pursuing other projects, and so we are still looking for opportunities to implement other projects that have been identified through other planning efforts.
All right. Ms. Dearman, we certainly thank you for all of that. And thanks again to Councilmember Henderson for this suggestion to NDOT to have them share some of this with us. And seeing nothing else, we are adjourned this afternoon. Thank you.